Hi, my name is Rachel and today we're talking about Book Banning and Slaughterhouse-5 by Kurt Vonnegut. Let me preface this by saying what Slaughterhouse-5 is and what book banning is and is not, okay? Slaughterhouse-5 is a book that is considered an American classic. It was published in 1969 and it is an anti-war book. Here's the synopsis and then we'll talk about why Moms for Liberty wants to ban it. Centering on the infamous World War II firebombing of Dresden, the novel is the result of what Kurt Vonnegut described as a 23-year struggle to write a book about what he had witnessed as an American prisoner of war. It combines historical fiction, science fiction, autobiography, and satire in an account of the life of Billy Pigram, a barber's son turned draftee, turned optometrist, turned alien abductee. As Vonnegut had, Billy experiences the destruction of Dresden as a POW. Unlike Vonnegut, he experiences time travel or becoming unstuck in time. An instant bestseller, Slaughterhouse-5 made Kurt Vonnegut a cult hero in American literature, a reputation that only strengthened over time despite his being banned and censored by some libraries and schools for content and language. But it was precisely those elements of Vonnegut's writing, the political edginess, the genre-bending inventiveness, the frank violence, the transgressive wit that have inspired generations of readers not just to look differently at the world around them, but to find the confidence to say something about it. 50 years after its initial publication, at the height of the Vietnam War, Vonnegut's portrayal of political disillusionment, PTSD, and post-war anxiety feels as relevant, darkly humorous, and profoundly affecting as ever, an enduring beacon through our own era's uncertainties. So this is a book that I have read. I read this for a project where I was going to read books recommended to me by my best friend Lou from Lou Reading Things, and I did record a review on it. However, I never did anything with this. I'm going to show you the review in a minute. Second though, I want to say something. Book banning is not when you take a book out of publication entirely. I know that that is a really popular way to redefine book banning so that you can avoid accountability for the fact that you are doing book banning.
Now listen, everyone still has a right to give their child whatever book they want to. So I'm suggesting you remove this book from schools and everyone's rights are preserved. These books are not being banned. That word has become a weapon to marginalize the voices of parents. Nazi book banning and the like has essentially been used to eliminate books from circulation. We're not doing that. We're asking you to keep them out of the reach of our children. It has never been controversial to protect children from certain things.
No one is asking for books to be banned or censored. That's not what we're doing here. We are asking for age-inappropriate books to be removed from minors so that they cannot get access to them without parent consent. Our Board of County Commissioner even passed that to where even in a public library, kids have to have parents' permission and they have to be a certain age to check out certain books. So I'm not sure why we're not implementing that here at the public school level.
I hear these words censorship and ban, and you shouldn't prevent my children from reading what they want to read. That's not happening. That's not happening. This is about age-appropriate books for in the school libraries. Parents can get these in any other library. Students can get them. But the main thing is, it's against the law. It's against the law. If you don't like it, change the law.
But unfortunately for you, the definition of book banning includes more than just taking a book out of circulation entirely. Book banning is defined as attempting to ban a book from a library, school district, institution, organization, government entity, retailer, or publisher based on its content. The "or" there is important, and I have said this a million times, so I'm going to reiterate once again. Book banning happens and is happening and has always happened in a variety of ways and places, not just one. If you have made previously accessible books inaccessible to the public because you object to their content, you are a book banner. And those books have been effectively banned in those places. And just like authoritarians love to change the definitions of things like communism, and communism is part of the reason why people tried to get Slaughterhouse-5 banned, changing the definition of book banning to only meaning one thing, as long as we don't make it banned by retailers, they don't consider it book banning. That's not the definition. If it walks like a duck and it sounds like a duck, it's not a chicken, you're a book banner. Embrace the title, stop lying to yourself. Recently, Slaughterhouse-5 was challenged at a school district here in Florida again by Moms for Liberty. If you don't know Moms for Liberty, I will link a video down below telling you all of the details about them. It's not by me, it's by somebody else. It's a great video and I highly recommend it. Not only Slaughterhouse-5, but 3 other books, Later Gator by Laura Miracle, The Freedom Writer's Diary, and A Stolen Life by J.C. Dugard. Again, a committee voted to keep them. Moms for Liberty appealed. This was St. Johns County, Florida, by the way. I realize that SJC probably won't mean anything to you. But it is not just happening with Moms for Liberty in St. Johns County. They also did this in Brevard County. Slaughterhouse 5 has long been, as a thing on Goodreads said, challenged and banned. There is a great WRTV article about this called Kurt Vonnegut Museum to Donate 1,000 Slaughterhouse 5 copies after challenge in Florida's schools. And this was in 2022. The Kurt Vonnegut Museum and Library is pushing back against a group's effort to restrict access to the author's novel Slaughterhouse 5 from a Florida school district. Its solution: to donate up to 1,000 copies of the book to students there. Slaughterhouse 5 is a science fiction novel, a fictionalized telling of Vonnegut's own experience as a prisoner of war in Nazi Germany in World War II. The book has a strong anti-war message. Julia Whitehead, the founder and CEO of the museum, believes the message of the book is important for older students to read. It's his war story, Whitehead said. There are messages in there that he wanted to convey about the dangers of war, but there are also incredible stories about compassion. We are not sending it to elementary students. This is a book that most teachers have decided is good content for our high school students to read. Whitehead said she's using this as an opportunity to share the book and wants to chat with the groups. She wrote to the nonprofit Moms for Liberty in an open letter requesting a meeting to discuss the organization's challenge of the book at Brevard schools in Brevard, Florida. The letter was shared to the museum's Twitter account. You have misunderstood the meaning of the word liberty. Damn! Removing someone else's privilege of reading a book is an act that is worthy of rebellion, Whitehead wrote in the letter, but we don't actually have to rebel. These are our rights as Americans. We simply have to help the school officials and elected officials understand that the Constitution is the law of our land. And the tweet reads, Moms for Liberty successfully got Slaughterhouse 5 banned in a school district in Florida, so it goes. So it goes is a thing that comes up in Slaughterhouse 5. It's said over and over. In response, we are giving up to 1,000 free copies of Slaughterhouse 5 to students who have had it banned. Read our CEO's message in cooperation with Lewis Black. It states, an open letter to Moms for Liberty and Bayside High School leadership. Allow me to introduce myself. I am the founder and CEO of Kurt Vonnegut Museum and Library in Indianapolis. I'm a former U.S. Marine Corps officer and the author of the book Breaking Down Vonnegut. Those of us who created and curate the Kurt Vonnegut Library and Museum request a meeting with you discussing the banning of 41 books, including Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse 5. By the way, this is Brevard County School District, again, that we're mentioning here, and if you would like to keep up to date with what's going on in Brevard County and the parents that are dealing with Moms for Liberty there, I highly recommend you follow my friend Amy Raub, as well as my friend Kelly, who have kids in the school district there and have been fighting against the fascist book banners, both on the school board, fuck them, and in their county. Let's talk about harm's way for a moment. Kurt Vonnegut knew something about harm's way. He, along with most able-bodied soldiers in our country, fought against book banners and other fascists during World War II. As a prisoner of war in Dresden, Germany, Vonnegut witnessed the unfolding of history, important events that were not captured as clearly or poignantly by any other than Vonnegut in Slaughterhouse 5. When Kurt Vonnegut finally returned home to Indianapolis, he went to the library to see how the local newspaper had covered the bombing of Dresden. He was shocked to discover it had never been mentioned. People tried to censor that moment in history, that moment in the human condition, but you see, Vonnegut is a national treasure. Back in 1973, a school in Drake, North Dakota, burned copies of Slaughterhouse 5 in the school's furnace. Vonnegut was so incensed that he wrote a letter to the school board chairman, Charles McCarthy, expressing this hope. Perhaps you will learn from this that books are sacred to free men for very good reasons, and that wars have been fought against nations which hate books and burn them. If you are an American, you must allow ideas to circulate freely in your community, not merely your own. And yes, that includes both the public library and the school library. Whether or not you take this to all facets where books are available is moot. If you remove it from one facet of your community, you are a book banner. In 2011, the first year we opened our doors to the public, a rural Missouri school attempted to ban Slaughterhouse 5 from its library and classrooms. We at the Vonnegut Library launched into action. We immediately contacted the Western Missouri Council Civil Liberties Union. As the CLU investigated the case, we at the Vonnegut Library began sending free copies to students at the high school. We are prepared to do the same with your district. We are prepared to help the courageous teachers who are being abandoned by their leadership. And they absolutely fucking are, by the way, in Brevard County. Fuck you, Matt. Any Bayside student or parent of a Bayside student will be able to request a free copy of Slaughterhouse 5 from us. We will give away up to 1,000 copies of this book and potentially more with additional donations. We will continue to get books donated to us through gifts to our 1922 Society, our Fund for Education at VonnegutLibrary.org. We are going to work with our friends at newspapers, the Freedom of Expression Network, including the American Library Association and National Coalition Against Censorship, the Florida Civil Liberties Union, and all the rest of our national partners who uphold our constitutional rights. We are going to create more readers of these books thanks to your efforts to take away our liberty, our freedom to read. Damn! Even our conservative former Vice President Mike Pence declared the last last week of September to be Banned Books Week in Indiana, celebrating our freedom to read. Oh God, not the worst person I know making a good point. Afforded to us in the U.S. Constitution. Intellectual freedom, the freedom to access information and express ideas, even if the information and ideas might be considered unorthodox or unpopular, provides the foundation for Banned Books Week. You have misunderstood the meaning of the word liberty. Oh my God, that's such a burn. Oh my God. Removing someone else's privilege of reading a book is an act that is worthy of rebellion, but we don't actually have to rebel because these are our rights as Americans. We just simply have to help the school officials and elected officials to understand that the Constitution is our law of the land. The whims of one group of moms is not the law of our land. By the way, a group of moms who typically do not have kids in the schools. Just saying. I know I'm also the mom of teens. I'll be sure to put them to work to assist with this effort to help others access books. Oh my God, Julia, you might be my hero. As former war general and president Dwight Eisenhower once said, oh no, my computer just died. Wait, what did Dwight Eisenhower say? I need to know. Julia, help! Well, so it goes. Don't join the book burners. Don't think you're going to conceal thoughts by concealing evidence that they ever existed. Don't be afraid to go into your public library and read every book. Our mission is to champion the legacy of Kurt Vonnegut, the principles of free expression and common decency. Perhaps our board chair, comedian Lewis Black, will be with us when we meet with you. Vonnegut said there was only one rule he knew of. God damn it, you gotta be kind. It is unkind to tell other families what books you want or don't want in the school library and classrooms. Boom! It's also none of your fucking business. Lewis Black has one rule. If he is to join us in the meeting with you, you must have at least 1 foot in reality. You can reach us at blah blah blah, sincerely, and so it goes, Julia A. Whitehead, founder and CEO, Kurt Vonnegut Museum and Library. There is a quote also posted in this tweet from Kurt Vonnegut in the letter to Charles McCarthy from 1973. If you were to bother to read my books to behave as educated persons would, you would learn that they are not sexy, and do not argue in favor of wildness of any kind. They beg that people be kinder and more responsible than they often are. So, why did Moms for Liberty object to Slaughterhouse-Five? Same reasons that book banners have long argued against Slaughterhouse-Five. Even when Vonnegut was alive, he was dealing with this, as we can see. But let's look, because I did get the challenge. Please know that if you are challenging books, what you do in the dark will come to light. And then in that light, I will fucking make fun of you. Here it is. Summary of concerns for Slaughterhouse-Five. This book contains explicit violence, including animal cruelty, inexplicit sexual activities that include bestiality, sexual nudity, profanity, inflammatory religious commentary. Inflammatory religious commentary. Book Looks, if you're not familiar, what it says, a 4 out of 5 not for minors for Book Looks review rating. Book Looks is who generated this, and Book Looks is the website that Moms for Liberty tells people to go use to help them just regurgitate opinions on books rather than formulating their own opinions on books. And Book Looks is, I assume, just run by Moms for Liberty cohorts and has a bunch of really terrible takes on books that are astronomically stupid. It lists the pages and the things that they take objection to. Page 15, we asked him how it was to live under communism, and he said it was terrible at first because everybody had to work so hard because there wasn't much shelter or food or anything, but things were much better now. He had a pleasant little apartment and his daughter was getting an excellent education. Oh no, not something good about communism. How terrible. Wait, I'm sorry. Which one of those things is explicit violence, inexplicit sexual activity, sexual nudity, profanity, inflammatory religious commentary? How does that first quote fall under that? That's weird. That's weird. It's almost like you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Page 52, get out of the road, you dumb motherfucker. Page 55, wearied to Billy about neat torture he'd read about or seen in movies or heard on the radio about other neat tortures he himself had invented. One of the inventions was sticking a dentist drill into a guy's ear. Another one, you stake out a guy on an anthill and in the desert sea he's facing upward, and you put honey all over his balls and pecker. You cut off his eyelids so he has to stare at the sun until he dies. Okay, it sounds like to me these are things that happen in wartime, and what's interesting is that we glorify war in front of children, but then when soldiers actually talk about the things that they did to other people, suddenly we're supposed to not talk about that, because we're only supposed to talk about glorifying war, not actually what happens in wartime and the things that, the inhuman things that other humans do to each other in the name of war, right? Sure. Yeah, let's lie to my kids. That's a better educational environment. You're right. Page 59, he had a picture of a woman attempting sexual intercourse with a Shetland pony. He had made Billy Pilgrim admire that picture several times. The woman and the pony were posed before velvet draperies. It was the first dirty photograph in history. Page 111, their penises were shriveled and their balls were retracted. That sounds so clinical, I don't understand the problem. Number 125, the British had no way of knowing it, but the candles and soap were made from the fat of rendered Jews and G-slur, and fairies and communists and other enemies of the state. So Oh no. Are you guys admitting that you don't want to talk about what the Nazis did to people? Or are you only objecting to this because you don't want to acknowledge that the Nazis did it to communists? Are you familiar with the saying, first they came for the communists, but I wasn't concerned because I wasn't a communist? Or did you just avoid that? Page 139, the visitor from outer space made a serious study of Christianity to learn, if he could, why Christians found it so easy to be cruel. He concluded that at least part of the trouble was slipshod storytelling in the New Testament. He supposed that the intention of the Gospels was to teach people, among other things, to be merciful, even to the lowest of the low, but the Gospels actually taught this: before you kill somebody, make absolutely sure he isn't well connected. So it goes. The flaw in the Christ story, said the visitor from outer space, was that Christ, who didn't look like much, was actually the son of the most powerful being in the universe. Readers understood that, so when they came to the crucifixion, they naturally thought, and Rosewater read out loud again, oh boy, they sure picked the wrong guy to lynch this time. That thought had a brother. There are the right people to lynch. Who? People not well connected. So it goes. The visitor from outer space made a gift to Earth of a new gospel. In it, Jesus really was a nobody, and a pain in the neck to a lot of people with better connections than he had. He still got to say all the lovely and puzzling things he said in the other gospels. So the people amused themselves by one day by nailing him to a cross and planting the cross in the ground. There couldn't possibly be any repercussions, the lynchers thought. The reader would have to think too that since the new gospel hammered home time and time again what a nobody Jesus was. And then, just before the nobody died, the heavens opened up and there was thunder and lightning. The voice of God came crashing down. He told the people that he was adopting the bum as his son, giving him full powers and privileges as the son of the creator of the universe throughout all eternity. God said this: from this moment on, he will punish horribly anyone who torments a bum who has no connections. So the only reason that I can think of that they would be mad at that is that they are mad that they're not getting praised for being classist. Is that it? Page 144, one of the biggest moral bombshells handed to Billy by the Tralfamadorians incidentally had to do with sex on Earth. They said their flying saucer crews had identified no fewer than 7 sexes on Earth, each essential to reproduction. Again, Billy couldn't possibly imagine what 5 of those 7 sexes had to do with the making of a baby, since they were sexually active only in the 4th dimension. They told him there would be no earthling babies without male homosexuals. There could be no babies without female homosexuals. When I read this book, I just thought that it was just like, oh, aliens have like a completely different idea of biological sex than we do, and it was just being silly. I'm not seeing the problem. Like, as a public schools parent, if my kid read that in a book at his school, am I supposed to be offended? Can you explain why? Quickly? 150. Billy was on top of Valencia making love to her. Should I pull out my Bible? Because my Bible is more descriptive in Song of Solomon in its sex scenes than that sentence. 151. Billy made a noise like a small rusty hinge. He had just emptied his seminal vesicles into Valencia, had contributed his share of the green beret. Again, the Bible's more descriptive in its sex scenes than that. So, first of all, I just am not seeing the problem in literally any of these at all. And I also don't remember any of these lines for the most part, other than like the aliens believing that there's like I don't know, like queer people on Earth are responsible for making baby. I didn't even understand that part. And the fact is, like, the rest of it I didn't even remember, because that wasn't the point of the book. These are like such throwaway lines that are meaningless, and in context we're not doing anything that I don't really see the point. And that's what Book Looks and Moms for Liberty does, is just takes random lines, doesn't give you the context, and expects you to be offended about them without explaining why they're offended. Like, the first one in particular is so funny to me, especially with like the follow-up one where they're mad about explaining how the Nazis used people to make lamps and soap, and the only reason you're mad about it is why? Because communists are in there? What, you don't morally object to making communists into soap? Is that what you're saying? But the first one in particular is so funny to me, how it's like, we, asked him how hard it was to live under communism. He said at first it was hard, and then he said now it's fine, my kid goes to a good school. Like, do you even know the context of that? Why should people be upset about such a thing? Inflammatory, people aren't allowed to say their opinion on how Jesus was not classist, but Christians typically are? Are you serious? Are you serious? So these are the reasons, these are the lines, I shouldn't say reasons because it's not like the reasons were explained, but these were the lines that Moms for Liberty takes issue with. So let's see how it turned out in St. Johns County School Board together. And St. Johns County, by the way, is where Jacksonville, if you've ever heard of Jacksonville, Florida, that's where St. Johns County is. St. Johns County School Board decides not to remove Slaughterhouse 5 and 3 other books from high school shelves. All 4 books were restricted for 9 to 12th graders before Tuesday, Tuesday hearing, but the board decided to further restrict them. And I would love to know like how they came to this decision, what evidence was used to make this decision, did they harm people outside of that age range before? How? You know, what evidence was used to make this decision? And it says drug use, sex, animal cruelty, and violence. These are all topics various authors mentioned in 4 books that the St. Johns County School District considered banning on Tuesday for high school readers. The books came under fire from a parent who said the subject matter was inappropriate for the school system. The school board ultimately decided not to pull the books from shelves, but instead further restrict them to higher grade levels. The 4 books under consideration were Slaughterhouse 5, Freedom Writer's Diary, Later Gator, and A Stolen Life. By the way, A Stolen Life by J.C. Dugard is her personal memoir about her life at the hands of her kidnappers. Vonnegut's book is often taught in AP literature class and is a frequent target of book bans because sexual scenes, violence, and obscene language. It contains sexual activity involving rape, sexual molestation, references to bestiality, sexual violence, drug use, and references to animal cruelty, and keep in mind these events are happening to an 11-year-old girl. But the way that you just described that leaves out the context. Moore said if a PG-13 or R-rated movie isn't allowed to be shown in school, then the same content shouldn't be available for schools in the library. Again, that's entirely based on context. And I don't agree, like somebody asked me recently, why can't we just make a rating system for books? Who do you think would end up in charge of that rating system? And also, I would be very careful about making the same arguments that book banners are currently trying to make, because they want a rating system. They're going to end up in charge of it, and then they're going to start making books rated as PG-13 just by virtue of being queer. That's why we don't need a rating system for books. We need age ranges and a society that works to make sure that everybody has the full list of trigger warnings and content and understanding of what's in the book before they read it, so that parents can make decisions about what their kid has access to. Superintendent Tim Forson pointed out that the books in question are not part of any lesson plan. That means that they are self-selected in the library. Therefore, they're not being taught. Therefore, any parent can simply opt out or opt in based on their particular family's wishes. While there's sensitive material in each book, I'd like to remind you that these books are for high school students, written for those students on the way to adulthood. All 4 books were already restricted for 9th to 12th graders before Tuesday's hearing, but the board decided to further restrict them. Slaughterhouse 5 is now limited to grades 11th and 12th. Freedom Writer's Diary and Later Gator are restricted to 12th grade only with parent permission, and A Stolen Life is now restricted to 11th and 12th grades. Nancy Trey, who has 3 children enrolled at SJC schools, said she was concerned because the books already went through the objection process. These books already went through a district-wide review committee that was comprised of parents, district employees, and community members. They carefully read the entire work and considered it and its entirety as a whole, not just taking lines out of context, and whether it had artistic value or literary value, and whether it was appropriate for our kids. She said, "It's such a waste to me that we're spending time defending these great books instead of dealing with real issues facing our kids in our schools today." St. Johns County keeps a much longer list of books with objections. You can find that here. The list is updated when books are either removed or retained. Books already removed include The Handmaid's Tale, Water for Elephants, and 13 Reasons Why. Trey said she wants her children to have access to the books. Slaughterhouse 5 is a classic. Here we are on Memorial Day, and this is a book that was written by an American soldier who fought in World War II. He was a prisoner in a slaughterhouse there, and he came back and wrote the semi-autobiographical novel based on his experience. Trey said she would love for her children to have an opportunity to read that book and felt like her rights as a parent weren't considered. "I've got teenagers streaming in and out of here all day long. They deal with difficult issues. They're trying to understand stuff that they're going through, that their friends are going through. These books have been picked by the professionals in their school to help them sort of understand their world and understand different perspectives." Immediately, what my mind goes to is I know book banners, and their immediate response is going to be like, either just buy it or just get it from the public library. We are just talking about schools. We only want to talk about the books in the schools. We only want you to not have access at the schools, which is ridiculous. If you believe that the content is objectionable at the school, then I obviously believe you find the content objectionable everywhere else and don't want the kid to have access. There is no difference between publicly funding a public library and publicly funding a school library. So if you object to your tax dollars being used for the school library to have Slaughterhouse 5, I have to assume that you also object to your tax dollars being used for a public library to have Slaughterhouse 5. Again, these books were not being used in the classroom. This was not curriculum. This was self-selected material. If I was still vegan and I decided I don't want anybody at my children's school, I have an ethical issue with eating meat, and I don't want anybody at my child's school to be eating meat, you would laugh in my face. It would be perfectly fine for me to decide my kid is going to either only eat certain things at the cafeteria or not eat at the cafeteria at all. he can eat in a separate room. I will send in his food, right? These are things that some vegan parents do. It would be inappropriate for a vegan parent to say, not with my tax dollars we're not buying any meat. I'm going to make that decision for everybody. You don't get to make that decision for everybody. That's inappropriate. You are not the arbiter of what's appropriate for everybody else's families. It's a buffet style. You take what you need, you take what you like, you leave what you don't for the people who do like it. Another thing that they would say is just go get it at the public library.
This is about age-appropriate books in the school libraries. Parents can get these in any other library. Students can get them.
Do I have the right to protect my children from being exposed to sexually explicit content that I deem age inappropriate? Because as soon as someone puts this library book in a middle school library, no longer am I in control of what my children are reading. They don't have my guidance. Parents are hardly even allowed in schools anymore. Now listen, everyone still has a right to give their child whatever book they want to. So I'm suggesting you remove this book from schools and everyone's rights are preserved. These books are not being banned. That word has become a weapon to marginalize the voices of parents. Nazi book banning and the like has essentially been used to eliminate books from circulation. We're not doing that. We're asking you to keep them out of the reach of our children.
Except you have this dumb bitch named Carmen who admits that she wants the same restrictions that the public library made on the public schools libraries. So at least one person is saying the quiet part out loud, but she holds that just because she's doing book banning in 2 places does not mean that she's a book banner.
Our Board of County Commissioner even passed that to where even in a public library, kids have to have parents' permission and they have to be a certain age to check out certain books. So I'm not sure why we're not implementing that here at the public school level. So someone's point that kids can't be within walking distance of public libraries, the libraries will mail you books. But again, it goes back to what the Board of County Commissioners just did. Some of these kids can't even get these books because they're not the right age to get the books.
Well, dumb bitch, if you look at the fucking Hillsborough County Library online, it says it right here. County residents 17 or older. And you can also see right fucking there that it says that the place that you return it to is your nearest public library, which sort of defeats the purpose because you're not mailing it back. So you do in fact have to be able to access a public library location, Carmen. This is very simple if you would just, I don't know, look things up on the internet before you run your mouth at other people's children's school boards. So kids who cannot walk to the library, cannot get their books by mail. So if they don't have a parent that has transportation and they are not 17 or older and they cannot walk, then how do those kids access library books? They don't, but you all don't care about that because the point is making it so that there are more and more and more places that you have made it so that they cannot access books that make you uncomfortable. And further, I would just like to say that the meeting she's referencing, I was at. She was not. I was there along with a bunch of other Hillsborough County parents, including one who is a public schools librarian, who said, we the parents do not want this, and the commissioners did not listen to us. So we the public schools parents have made our voice heard. All those people you just heard from are not public schools parent, and yet our kids are being told your parents' rights are important, but only if we agree with their parental rights. Other than that, then we're going to make up things like you could just have the book mailed to you, but only if it's one that I deem appropriate, even though I'm not your parent. I feel like we're doing a lot of mental gymnastics here and not actually prioritizing parental rights or what's best for kids.
Here's the thing, many kids do not have access to their public library. Some counties don't have public libraries. Some counties don't have enough public libraries. Some kids don't have transportation to public libraries. Some kids, the only place that they are going to interact with books that they are able to get, either because of money or because of time or because of location that they are at, the only place they're going to be able to access books is at school. Book banners know this, and that's why they attack the schools first, because they know that's the easiest place for kids to get their hands on books that they don't want to have their hands on, because they are controlling Puritans who want to be able to make choices for other people's kids, and that's not appropriate. They are trying to make decisions for other people's kids at schools because it's more likely that a book will be picked up at a school because kids are already near the school anyway, rather than a library where kids might not have time to go, might not have a library card, or might not have transportation to go. Slaughterhouse 5 is a classic. Whether or not it's right for your kids is up to you, but it is a classic. It is worthy of being in a high school library, and it is one of those things that while it wasn't technically technically written for a young adult audience, it was written at a time where books written for a young adult audience wasn't really a thing, and that doesn't mean that it is not age appropriate. Whether or not you think it's still appropriate for your 10th grader is up to you. Whether or not that somehow changes in the time that they go from 10th grade to 11th grade, I'm not really understanding how a summer vacation leads to a child being developmentally able to read a book, but whatever. I think that a lot of what we're doing here is very arbitrary and not actually based on evidence. The fact is that this was published in 1969. It's read across countries, and it has not had any evidence showing that in the decades it's been read across the countries it's been read that it has ever caused any harm to anybody, especially minors, systematically. And that's what you'd have to prove in order to make a case for it to be removed from high school libraries from 9th to 12th grade. Now again, I read this because my friend Lou read it and told me I should read it. She's been reading it for a long time. And again, I don't remember these lines, but I know that they're taken out of context, and I know that they were just so like non-shocking in the context that I read them in that they didn't sink in. A lot of it did sink in though, and I do have a review on it. So after years of sitting on this footage, here is my review of Slaughterhouse-Five. One of Lo's favorites, which is Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut, and this is the weirdest thing, but in like a really good way. It's sort of about Kurt's actual experiences living through war, but also he created a character who went through the war and experiences a bunch of other shit, including time travel and being abducted by aliens. The best way that I can describe this, and I think this is why Lou likes it, is like, you know that feeling when you see something just absolutely fucking enormous, or you are looking up at the sky at night and you're in a place with no lights and you just feel the enormity of something and how you are so small in comparison, like in comparison to life itself, like you are almost insignificant. That's kind of how I felt reading it, and I think that was kind of the point. I would love to do a video with Lou longer on this and talk about the nitty-gritty and reread it. It's incredibly short, and talk about like the idea of a book like this being age appropriate, a book like this being necessary, a book like this being timely, a book like this being sort of like universal in many of its concepts. Lou is a lot smarter than I am, so everybody beg Lou in the comments to come on the channel. I mean, she already agreed to this, but just tell her you want her to anyway. Banned Books Week is coming, and I would love to be able to do a lot of banned books content, including doing a video like that with Lou. That would be really excellent. I would love to hear from you about all of this, the book banning, Slaughterhouse-Five, Kurt Vonnegut. Tell me if you've read it, tell me if you haven't, tell me if you plan to, tell me all your thoughts, and down below you can leave, just write "so it goes" in the comments if you made it to the end of the video. Okay? Thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Thanks for being here. So it goes. See you next time. Bye.
Before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Ashley H, Astrid P, Brittany Bobitney, Cami, Choco's Trash for Japanese Mysteries and Thrillers, Chris the Horror Therapist, DJ Rugbuzz, Ellie, Emerald Dodge, Emperor's New Blues, oh boy, my mouth, Aaron with 2 E's, Eric D, GalaxyBot, Jess, John E, Julie D, Kelly No K, Casey McKenzie, Kate W, Kiari, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lady Chips, Lemon Jelly, Lex, Lily B, Max B, Mommy Zami, Alice, Panoramic Demon, that's such a good name, Peggy Lou, who trolls Rachel with her Patreon name. Thank you, Peggy. Rain, Reese, SJ, Sadwich Bree, Samar, Scarlet, Shiny, SMK, Spoopy, Steph B, 2 Orbit, Urchin Audrey, White Raven 13, Zorvictia, and Chai Guy. Thank you all for being here, and thank you so much for being a friend. And last but not least, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Potato Starch Marxist patrons, and those are Alejandra, Alicia, Treasure of the Carlos Book Rec Fan Club. Carlos just heard me say that. Althea, Amanda D, Amanda, Andy, Angelica, Artie the Ninth, Ava, Ballads and Bookends, Beck, Blake, Lemon Pants, Blythe Lavender, Bookish Brain Rot, Bookish by Jenna, Bree, Caitlin, Cardinal Ginger, Carlin, Casper, Kate, Catherine, Kathy, CJ, Clover's Mom, Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Cosmic, Darius, Danielle, Darren, Desiree, Dilf Enthusiast, Dorian, Dorothea, E.T. Cosgrove, Ebby, Emily A, Emily L, Emma, Other Emma, Aaron, Ezra, Fiona, Gadarn, I'm begging you to email me and tell me how to say that. Garrett, Goddess of Rot, ooh, that's a good one. Hannah C, Harpy Kuro, Haley G, Ilianaka, JM Tennant, Jay is on Olympus, Jelly V, Jen Michelle, Genderqueer, Jenny G, Jessa Sue, Jill, Jojo Bookish, Kat, Catherine, Katie L, Haley, Kayala, Kendra, KMTV, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura Garcia, Lauren G, Lazarus Ray, Library of Scars, Lindsay M, Lisa B, Lisa L, LP, Luce, Siri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Madison, Man-Eating Plant, Marcella, Marquita, Megan, Malara, Mentally Unwell, May, Mockingbird Nation, Molly, James, Natalie, Never, Nicole R, Nicole G, Nimeska, Nyam Binary, Paige P, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Rachel B, Reader Rising, Reba, Rebecca, Rebecca R, Ronnie, Rosie, Rowan, Socoria, Sadie, Sakia Lume, Samantha O, Sammy C, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Sarah Z, Shamed, Shannon, Sean, Super Evil Sam, Tay, Talia, Tiana, Trash Can Teddy, Triple M, Tito Phoenix, and Writer A. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend.